what's one of the features that you think gets way too much hype in these like AI note takers? Is there like any vendor throughout the research? Like I know you ranked some of them, but like is there one of the product or maybe just like outside note takers too that has surprised you in a good way when you've like put it to the test?
Yeah. So, okay. So I think overall across a bunch of different tools that are, everyone's layering on AI right now to their tools, which is
Yeah.
smart. And I think people should. I think it's the right move right now. But the one kind of thing that all of the AI note takers have that I do find less helpful than it seems in marketing is like the ask AI feature, like in any tool where it's like people are like, oh, we just launched this new AI feature. It's like it's a chat where you can chat with the tool and ask it questions. And it's great. Like it is great actually. And like we use that like, for the tools that have it. Like it's not bad, but I think it seems cooler than it maybe is. And I think the way that at least at Arrows, the way that we are thinking about AI is like the ask AI kind of stuff is reactive where a human has to think, okay, I back to like the basic ChatGPT prompting. A human has to think, okay, I want to know this information. I want to go to this tool and ask it this information, and then I know what I want to do with this output. And so it requires a level of like, I'm going to stop and think, I'm going to go ask this tool a question. And I think that there's a version of these tools where any AI tools or tools that are adding AI that are thinking about the actual workflow of their users and proactively suggesting or proactively saying this is how AI should layer into your day to day versus having someone have to go to the tool and say I want to ask this a question. If you know that
Mm,
that's a question that's going to come up, like if you're building something and you want to build an AI feature, if you know that something's going to come up, I'm gonna give an example of arrows just because that's our product and
yeah.
that's what we've been thinking about, but, like, for example, one of the AI things that we are, building is, like, content suggestions for your digital sales room. So if an email comes into HubSpot, we can read that and say, "Hey, it sounds like they, wanted to schedule a trial kickoff call. Do you wanna add that to a milestone in your sales room?" And
Mm,
so we're not the kind of difference between that and, like, an ask AI, chatbot inside a tool is that we are saying, "Hey, we noticed this happened. It seems like you want this to happen." You don't have to think as a sales rep, uh, "Oh, that happened now. I wanna make sure I go update my sales rep," because the reality is people aren't thinking like that. People are thinking about, "I have a next meeting that I have to prep for," or, "Can I close this deal by the end of this week to make my boss happy?" They're not thinking about all the little details that they have to do in their day to day, and so I just think sometimes that stuff looks really cool on a demo, and the reality is it's not actually proactively helping users in their day to day.
yeah. An example for like the marketing ops context would be a lot of like automation platforms or iPaaS tools are still designed at their core to be like if this then that type of workflows, and they're like linear workflows, and you have branches or whatever, just like you can build in HubSpot with like drip campaigns and sales campaigns. But a lot of tools are coming out with like prompt the tool and we'll create the workflow for you. Just like explain
Yes.
to us what the end
Yeah.
goal is, and like we'll create it for you. And I've tried a lot of them, and I just feel like it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist. Like I don't need you to create a draft for me if I'm just gonna spend the next 10 minutes fixing that draft, and it takes too much time to fix it in the first place. Like if I had started with a blank canvas, I would have gotten to my destination a lot faster. And I feel like that kind of resonates a lot with your answer about like we want to add layer on that's going to be a value add, like helping people be more efficient as opposed to just like everyone has an ask AI or like draft this meeting agenda with AI. But like on the research that you did specifically, so it was like when you put them up against each other, it was like 22 tools and you had the same sales call. So they all had the same input. And the comparison research that you did, like marketing and sales ops folks, like rarely have the luxury of doing this. Like when we're researching a new tool, maybe we've got like five that we're gonna compare, and this idea of having the same input for all of them is really cool. How many actually delivered something useful? You kind of teased that out already, but like, what were the others optimizing for instead? Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I think I mean, that is the one, like, caveat, and to be honest, I was nervous about even putting the guide out because I was like, I don't want people to be upset because I know that I'm not evaluating the entire tool. I'm just
Right.
evaluating the quality of the notes that came out. But I going back to my previous statement, I think that's really critical and actually like one of the most important parts of these tools. Um, but there were three that were exceptional notes for me. I'll call them out. Fathom, Granola, and Circle Back were the three that, to me, based on, again, just the out of the box notes, had like really actionable, concise, great notes that if I was a seller, I would want to use. So I was specifically looking for the sales use case. So like I am a seller, I just did a demo, and so I want to be able to see those notes or reference back to those notes when I'm coming back to do my follow-up. And so the things
Okay.
that I cared about were, did the call transcript or did the notes pull out key stakeholders? Did they pull out timelines that we talked about? Did they pull out pain points? Um, I think those are kind of honestly like the basic things. Oh, next steps and action items is a really, really big one.
Mm.
I think that's the thing that we can all relate to with we are in calls all day. And then it's like at the end of the day, you're like, well, what did I promise them? And then for me, oftentimes I'm going back, watching the call recording, looking at the last 10 minutes of the transcript to be like, what did I tell them
Yeah.
I was going to do before this call? So I think the action items are really huge too. Um, so yeah, those three delivered across the board on all of those for just things that as a sales rep or customer success or whoever, if you're doing calls, you can reference back to those notes and have a really good, clear understanding of what happened in that call without like having to do a lot of digging. And I think one thing I'll say too that I think is going back to your previous question about the AI tools in general and what I think a lot of them are doing is it seems like a lot of tools generally that are summarizing, doing AI summaries of anything, whether it's a note taker or CRM or whatever it is. It's almost like they're taking three bullet points of information and putting them into a big block of text with like a bunch of crap around the three pieces of information.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I really found with a lot of the notes is like they probably all had valuable notes, but if I can't skim that, then it's not valuable. And so, actually, what I personally found and what I think most people would find most valuable for things like that, for any kind of AI summary, is what are the three things you should care about most? Or, like, what are the high level things rather than a long paragraph where I have to go through and be like, okay, well, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Like, you're just adding fluff to like show that there's a lot of information, but we don't want that fluff. If anything, the notes should be removing all fluff completely, and you should just have actionable uh, bullet points of what happened in that call and what needs to happen next.
Yeah, and you can spot the GPT isms in that like fluff around the bullet point, like just give
Yeah.
me the one action item there.
Yes.
For the podcast, I use Descript to transcribe all of the podcast episodes, and it's usually pretty solid. Like there's a lot of other like transcription apps that I've compared it to, and it does a decent job until you get into an area where there's like buzzwords or like acronyms that are specific for that. So, just curious in the sales call that you like you had as the input for that, like, was it a super easy sales call? Were there like things that was like a bunch of acronyms and because like that's the part where I'm always like editing in Descript to being like, all right, iPass. Like we talked about that in the
Mhm.
iPass episode. I had to manually change that in a bunch of places and it wasn't just like find and replace because they transcribe or it transcribed iPass in a bunch of different
Mhm.
ways, and so it was, like, super painful to do there.
Yeah, it was a basic sales call that I did. I tried to keep it pretty, like, generic for, like, a general sales demo. The 2 things that I did do to kind of try and trick the AI, which most of them did pass this, but I included some small talk. Like, if you're on a sales call, you're probably doing small talk in the beginning, and I, as a
Mhm.
seller, don't care to see that in my notes. Like, that's just a nice
Mm.
thing that we did, but I don't need to reference that again.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will say a lot of them included the small talk. Like, I talked about, like, a trip to Italy and hiking in Denver or whatever, and they
Mm.
included that, and it's like, that's irrelevant information, so I thought the 3 that I tested did not have them in the small talk in there, and so I thought that was really impressive that they were able to see that's not relevant to this conversation, and that's not what you need in your notes, and so we don't need to include that. And then
Mm.
I also included one little blurb about, like, it was dumb. ChatGPT suggested that this is what I put in there, but I did, like, at the end, it was like, "By the way, have you ever, trained a cat to use a toilet?" something like stupid like that. And I will say, I think only one or two of the tools picked that up. So I was kind of trying to like throw some tricky things in there to be
Hmm,
like, does it pick these things up and can it see that obviously not relevant to the conversation and don't include that in the notes? So little things like that.
very cool.
Yeah.
So what would like AI features on top of that look like? Because like I know that's like coming up in your second part, and that was like the source of a lot of the comments from some folks. But like you're super deep into that like sales ops space and the CS space for onboarding. At Arrows, like what would it look like to design AI features that respect the actual attention span that some of these CS folks or sales ops folks that have back to back to back meetings all the time? Like what would that look like?
Yeah, so for the AI note taker specifically, the things that I found impressive. So I'm launching a part 2 of this, and it's like a deep dive with like the CEOs and founders who built these tools to kind of show
Hmm.
me like what's impressive about your tool. And the things that I think are really cool and actually helpful for day-to-day users is um again, we're specifically focusing on like how they integrate with HubSpot for a lot of these, but like a lot of them can pull specific parts of the notes or the transcript and put that into a property in the CRM. So they can say, okay, the property that you want to fill is maybe their like medic sales buying criteria, budget, whatever those things are, or pain points. Like I think that's a big one we see for like a customer success use case for like handing off information. If the sales team uncovered pain points in the sales process, fill a property and have that sit in the CRM so the CSM can see what the pain points are and they know how to ask again on the next call. So those are some
Mm.
basic things is like saying and prompting, this is the information I want, fill it into the CRM, and then you can do tons of automations once it's in the CRM. Um, and then there's a lot of different things that you can do. I saw a lot of cool use cases where it pulls the action items into project management tools or into HubSpot. So you can set a HubSpot task and actually create a task for yourself. If you said that you were going to do this, then create a task so you can manage the to-dos and things like that afterward. And then there's a lot of really, really cool and unique kind of agentic things that people are doing. And I don't want to discount that. It's really, really cool that you can do all of that stuff. It's amazing. It's just like if the notes aren't great, then it matters less in my opinion. I don't know if I have specific kind of things that you can do, but there's a lot of really cool things. And I do think that is the next level for all of these AI note taking tools is like they all know that they need to be adding more like AI workflows. You have this information, now do this with it. If it sees this, then do this. If it knows it's a sales call, then put it into this kind of workflow action. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that coming soon too.
Very cool. I'm excited for that next part. I think it's cool that you're chatting with some of the founders and the product folks. Like you're almost turning this into a YouTube series.
Yeah.
It could become its own podcast. Like 'cause there's so many of them out there, and I feel like they all layer on a different flavor of this, and there's different use cases for it. Like sales and CS is one. There's like the whole like box of internal meetings too. Like
Hmm.
everyone inside a company has internal meetings and like agendas and next action items and all that stuff, and I know some of them like focus on different parts of that. So
Yep.
yeah, excited to check that out.